All right, Doc, we're talking about codes on toys.
Yeah, so, the fact that toys made in other countries like China and Cambodia and some of the other places have much less regulation than in the U.S., Canada, and Europe. So first of all, if you can find something that's made in the U.S., Canada, or Europe, you're going to have much more stringent regulation than you do in some of these, other countries like China. And now the problem with
is China trying to kill all of us?
I think they are. Now, the truth is, though, if you say, well, I'm just going to avoid toys made in China, you're going to have a bored little child because they're not going to have a lot to play with because, 99% of stuff is made there.
That is so true. I have a great nephew whose birthday is July 3rd. And so it was, I'm out shopping. It's around the 4th of July. I wanted to buy him a birthday gift. And I figure it's 4th of July. I need to find him something made in America.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I found, as I remember, was a coloring book and some crayons.
Right.
Everything else in the entire toy store was made in Canada. I mean, in China.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
It's true. And, there are very slack regulations on what those things are made with and what chemicals they put in there. It's just done as cheaply as possible. So the first thing you can do, the most important thing before we get into the codes is wash the toys first with a green cleaner before they are played with or touched. I see these parents, they'll take a toy right out of the package, they'll hand it to their kid will put it right in their mouth.
Before they're out of the store.
Yeah, and same thing with these plush toys, like the teddy bears and the soft stuffed animals. Wash those things before. Our kids lay there and hug those things all night, and the chemicals that are in there in the manufacturing process can leach out. And so wash things first. Creed knows that when we get a new toy, the first thing we do is we give it a bath. And, he joins in. We have a lot of fun with it. But that's the first thing. Anything we get, we wash it first. So the number one important chemical is lead. Or the toxin is lead. And a lot of press was made over lead in toys a few years ago. And a lot of parents thought, okay, well, that problem's been solved. Think again. The fact is, there is no comprehensive ban on lead in toys in the United States. Now, lead has no place in anything that our children play with. Lead can damage your child's nervous system, and for those that don't really fully comprehend what that means their brain, their thought process, their behavior process, their mental state, their learning and behavioral processes. Lead can interrupt this. And so it's illegal to paint toys with paint that contains more than 0.06% lead. But recently, Mattel had to recall toys that the lead content was 11%. That's 180 times the legal limit of lead in those toys. And this is Mattel. This is a major corporation. And so we always test the kids that we work with for these different behavioral and learning process problems for lead and other heavy metals. And if they're having either like behavioral or attention problems, many times we find the presence of very high lead concentrations. And we have a very specific protocol to detoxify the lead out of the body. It's called oral chelation, and it works really, really well. So these things can be solved. But if your child is having any kind of these problems, whether it be ADD, autism, any of those things, they really need to be tested for heavy metals. And then we have a process that we take them through in order to cleanse these things out of their body. And they do remarkably well after you do that. Now, before we move on, the one more thing about lead and metals. While we're on this subject, sometimes little girls and I guess little boys will wear some of this cheap metal jewelry, like the little cheap metal bracelets and the little cheap metal rings. Many times this metal contains tremendous amounts of lead and cadmium and other toxic metals. So be very careful because it touches their skin and it can soak through the skin into their bodies. One study they did from jewelry from these coin-operated machines, like the gumball machines, but they have rings and those things in them.
Yeah.
They found 70% of those things contained illegal levels of lead.
Wow.
So be very, very careful about that. Some of this cheap jewelry that you see these little girls wearing around the necklaces and around the bracelets and that, very, very toxic.
Direct contact with the skin.
Absolutely, and it'll soak right in. Cadmium is super toxic, and a lot of those things have very high levels of that. Now, the main chemical that you want to watch, the first one is PVC, or polyvinyl chloride, and it's identified with a number 3 or a V symbol in the plastic. Now, what I'm talking about here is if you'll look at the bottom or you'll look in some corner somewhere of that plastic, there will be a triangle. And in that triangle, there will be a code. That code tells you what that plastic is made with. Now, if it has a number 3 in that triangle, or it has a symbol V in that triangle, then this plastic is so toxic that it's nicknamed poison plastic. Oof. Now, it is used, believe it or not, it has been used in teethers for babies. And it's also used in balls like beach balls, pool toys, and bath toys. And the bath toy thing
Why? Is it because it's cheap?
Yeah, it's cheap and it makes it really flexible. You know, like a pool, like like one of the floaties that the kids will go in the pool that they can float around in, that real flexible clear plastic. That's PVC. That's polyvinyl chloride. And it's especially bad in the hot bath because the heat from the bath makes the phthalates leach out of the toys, and it's what's called off-gassing, which means when it hits the heat, it causes the phthalates to actually off-gas into the area. So phthalates are a major hormone disruptor. Phthalates have been linked to ADD, depression, anxiety, cancer, obesity, diabetes, and phthalates have been banned. Now listen to this. The use of phthalates have been banned in all of Europe, 12 other countries, and California. But in the rest of U.S., nah. Let's keep putting that in our kids' toys. But it's been banned in almost every other part of the world. You know, I guess what happened, I don't know why, but I guess we don't want to inconvenience these corporations and increase their costs. But, putting it in teething rings for babies is kind of crazy. So avoid anything that has the number 3 or the symbol V in the little small triangle, or anything that's vinyl. Let's say polyvinyl chloride, it might say vinyl on it. Now, third on my list is BPA. This is identified with the symbol number 7 in the triangle. And this, avoid plastics with this symbol. Look for the package that says BPA free. You know, we always buy like the sippy cups, the baby bottles, all of that we buy that says BPA free on the package. But you'll find this in hard, clear plastics. It's been in baby bottles for years. It's been in sippy cups for years. So BPA causes a whole host of mental problems like depression, anxiety. It's been linked to hormone disruption. And because of its estrogen-like qualities, it causes what's called early onset puberty. What that means is the chemical BPA is very chemically similar to estrogen in our body. So what happens, there's so much of it in our environment that the average age of puberty in girls has gone from 13, 40 years ago, to the average age of puberty is now 9 in the United States. And so, I mean, we've all noticed. It's like, she's how old? She's 9, 10 years old, and she looks like she's 13 or 14. Yeah. BPA in our environment is what's causing this change of puberty in girls. So BPA is a real problem because it's been linked to depression, anxiety, thyroid malfunction, hormone disruption. I mean, just look around. Look at how much thyroid and hormone problems everybody's having, and depression and anxiety. And this is one of the places it's coming from. So there are some really good brands of non-toxic toys out there. I know Melissa and Doug toys are usually pretty good. Sprig, S-P-R-I-G, Sprig is another really good one. Good old wooden toys are always a good choice. But so, you know, like a few weeks ago, I mentioned the toxic chemicals in our homes, and we went into that in great detail. And today I mentioned the concentrations of toxins that are in our kids' toys. And I know our audience hears me talk about this often, and hopefully people aren't getting tired of hearing about it. But I feel that the challenge in healthcare over the next 50 years is how do we deal with the side effects of the chemical toxins that we're being exposed to. I feel this is the number one health problem facing our citizens, facing our people. We don't know anybody that has a lot of these, chronic diseases that so much money is spent on. We know people that have thyroid problems, hormone problems, depression, anxiety, ADD, bipolar disorder. This is where these things are coming from. That's what these chemicals cause. So think about the people around you that have health problems, and we haven't had any explanation of where these things are coming from. Why did my thyroid quit working? We don't know. Why does my kid have ADD or depression? We don't know. Why do I have hormone problems? Where's all the obesity and autism coming from? The cancer coming from? We don't know. Well, we do know. And it's from these things. So that's why I harp on this all the time. And, I hope that our audience is not tired of hearing it. The average American takes in 14 pounds of chemical toxins in their bodies every year. So we're literally bombarded by this. And if we can just reduce them by just a little bit, it will make a difference. And with just a small amount of effort and knowledge, we can get these things reduced. So let's all try to reduce them by 50%. And the other 50% we can cleanse out of the body by doing one of our cleansing programs. And most of these diseases that I'm talking about can be made much better. We can solve these things by just paying attention to these toxins and ways that we have to get them out of the body, cleansing and detoxifying these toxins. There's a very specific protocol that we have in place to where we locate what the toxin is, and then we have a specific cleansing program or a detoxification program to get rid of those. Things like lead, we use the chelation, the oral chelation therapy. Things like the BPA and the phthalates, we use the bentonite cleanse and some of the other things that we have available. So, it can be made better. It's not hopeless. I just wanted parents to be aware, wash these toys, look at the code on there, look for things that are BPA free, avoid vinyl and lead at all cost.
I've seen some really cool homemade, handcrafted toys at the farmers market in Lafayette.
Yes.
So there's some woodworking people who do like puzzles and little trains.
Those
and all
things
kinds
are
of
great.
At the farmers market. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Those things are really, really good.
Buy local and buy American.
Absolutely. Things that are locally made. And, when we were younger, those are more of the things that we had. Now everything it comes in plastic. Our food comes in plastic.
I'm from the country. If I wouldn't have been a little boy, I'd have had nothing to play with.
Right.
You were going to say that?
We didn't have toys. We had goats and
it's really
rabbits
true,
and chickens.
A cardboard box and a stick.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's much better.
How many times I look, because I've got two kids, 127, 121, and trust me, many Christmases, they would have this very expensive toy, and the toy would be over in the corner. They would be playing with the box
right
that it arrived in.
Yeah. I still see that. Yeah. So the code 3, the code 7, and the symbol V are the bad ones.
Okay.
All right.
So
Thanks,
avoid
Doc.
those. You bet. Thanks, guys.
How can, because inevitably, every time you escape here, folks will contact us and say, well, how can we get in touch with Dr. Kevin? And I tell them, my general answer is, I don't know where he lives. So how can folks get in touch with you?
Okay. They can, in the Lafayette, Broussard area, they can call my office, 837-7174. Listen, even if you just want to talk about this, if you have a question, I'm very accessible. Most of my patients have my cell number. I have patients that are at the grocery store and they'll text me a picture of a food label and ask my opinion on it. So you can call me and ask me questions on this. If your child is having a concern or if you're having a concern, you can call and I can get on the phone with you.
You can find him on our website too at 999ktdy.com. Just click wellness and you can find all of Dr. Kevin's shows and topics.
And you're on Facebook too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bryant Wellness?
Bryant Wellness, it's the Bryant Wellness Institutes. Yeah, so they can call 837-7174, and in New Iberia, they can call 367-2567, or they can join us on Facebook at the Bryant Wellness Institutes.
All right, thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
Wellness Wednesday.